So thinking about kind of looking back on your kind of education and career, what would you say to your fellow early career conservationists who are just kind of starting out on their journey? What skills do you think they need, and how do you think they should go about getting their first job?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of a there's a lot of uh, specifics. I think that like, if you're working internationally, I think it's key to understand the language, at least in a rudimentary way. Very important to understand the culture. If you walk in to a place and don't speak the language and don't understand the motivations for why people are doing things the way they're doing them, be it the general population or your coworkers, I think you're not going to get. It's going to be frustrating for everyone. You're not going to get anywhere. Um, I think and this is advice that I give to undergraduates who are interested in graduate school. I think it's important to, as an undergraduate, hook up with some professor at your existing university. Volunteer, latch onto some project, be it menial data entry, be it analyzing camera trap images, whatever, just something. It doesn't even necessarily have to be something you're that interested in, but just some kind of scientific project. And if possible, end up as a junior author on a paper. Because then I think going into graduate school, if you have a publication on your CV that already tells any potential graduate committee that you're serious, because you already did that. Not that many undergraduates could have that to show for. Then you also have a reference, a solid reference in whoever the professor was, and saying like, look, this student is serious. It was boring work, but they did it well. They asked questions, et cetera, et cetera. And then also for looking for a number of, in the United States anyway, people, they get their undergraduate degrees and spend a year or two doing various tech jobs just to gain experience, working in the field for some graduate project or whatever. I think it's important to not pigeonhole yourself too much there. Like, you might be a bird person, all you want to do is study birds, but the job you can get is with salamanders. Well, there's still a lot of the skills in field work is the same. A lot of the analyses are the same, and it doesn't matter too much if better to work with a taxa you're not that interested in than wait for the perfect thing to come along. I think there's a lot of people in our field. A lot of people have keen interests, and you're not necessarily going to get there your first go out the gate. I got a degree working on Blackstone's fish owls. I'm one of a handful of people who know anything about this bird, and there wasn't a job for Blackstone's fish owl expert. And so I ended up being a grant manager for the Wildlife Conservation Society, because that's where the grant was. Working, writing grants for tigers and leopards and bears, which I don't really care about, but that's where the job was. And I was able to carve out space to continue working with fish owls. And then after 7-8 years, I was able to then carve out this larger role doing the migratory bird stuff in Asia, which is what I really wanted to be doing, but it took a while to get there. But that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, I mean, my views kind of changed since when we both started out. It was kind of like the model of a kind of conservationist was kind of a warrior kind of scientist, normally an ecologist, someone who did a PhD and studied something and wrote papers with recommendations on things like that. And that seemed to be where the kind of role mostly ended, not always. Do you still think that, I mean, there's a lot of people still doing that, I feel. Do you feel that has much impact in isolation, or what are the things, like you describe how you did your work, but then the logging companies did some stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that the difference between that understanding and them doing stuff was a whole load of other things that weren't connected to your field work or ecological knowledge. And what kind of skills or experiences, did you need for that, or learn through that, or should people be thinking about?
Yeah, no, yeah, I think you're right. One deficit of our education was there wasn't really a course in the public relations, or the human dynamics, stakeholder engagement, and I assume there's something like that now, because that's become so painfully clear that that's essential. Like, who cares what you or I write in the Journal of Applied Ecology? You know, who cares? Like, if you can't take that information, repackage it, and present it to the people who are going to be in charge of the landscapes, the people who are going to be logging, people who are going to be fishing, it's meaningless. It might have a nice impact factor. It might improve your standing for tenure, but unless you're engaging with people, it's all worthless from my perspective. So, and I think so. Another reason that I think I was able to have some success with talking to loggers is that I've been going there for a long time. I can speak the language of these village loggers. I understand where they're coming from, and we can have conversations and experiences that aren't just about business. We have personal relationships, which then leads to trust. And I think that's like I talk to these loggers. Their bottom line is still money. They still want to make money, but I understand where they're coming from, and they understand where I'm coming from, and we're able to find a middle ground where we both get something out of it. And that's not easy to do. It's not. As you mentioned earlier, right in the introduction, that I tend to be a bit of a misanthrope. So I'm not the ideal person to do this. I don't necessarily want to be doing that, but it's essential. And I think every conservationist needs to have that in their toolkit, as well as an understanding of statistical rigor and study design. They need to know how to talk to people, how to listen, and how to convey meaningful messages. And
So it
honestly,
sounds
I
like,
think
yeah, so like a mixture of like skills but also social capital. You can be also not like a nice guy and arrive from outer space and be a nice guy and like, we don't know you and trust you. We haven't been
exactly
drinking with you, or in the steam room, or whatever you guys do in Russia. So then there's I suppose there's an inherent kind of time lag between knowing what there is to do and then building up those relationships to hopefully get it done.
Yeah, and it can be concurrent too. I mean, you can be, as you're collecting your data, you can still be, as you're identifying stakeholders, getting them engaged in one way or another, or it doesn't have to. You don't have to wait till you have your recommendations, conservation recommendations, before pivoting to developing those relationships. But yeah, it's an important part of what we do.
And just the last bit I've got to ask you about is about your book. Now, as you mentioned, you got this book about your experience in Russia, called Owls of the Eastern Forest. And you mentioned, I didn't know you didn't win it, but it's on the short list, or the award has been given for that national non-fiction book. It's been given out?
No, so the book made the long list, which is only 10 books. So I mean, what it's saying is that it's one of the the 10 best nonfiction books of 2020 coming out of the United States. So then the finalists, which was it whittled that 10 down to 5. That was 2 days ago. So and then the winner is in a few weeks.
All right, so you could be the winner.
No, I'm not the winner, because I already got kicked out.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought you, okay. And how are you doing on the bestseller list?
I don't know. I mean,
Are you pretending to me that you don't check it daily?
I stopped as soon as I got kicked out of the running for the National Book Award. I stopped looking. But it's been consistently in the top 50 of independent bookstores in the United States since it came out. But I haven't checked in the UK for a while. So I don't know how it's doing there. I know it's in its 3rd print in both the US and the UK, which seems good, but I don't know the numbers.
And what in the world kind of inspired? What made you write this book? You know, what made you think, oh, I'm going to write a book and just someone's going
I
to be
think
interested in this stuff?
well, yeah, I didn't think it would be quite it would receive quite the attention it did, for sure. I thought that people like owls and people that like Russia would read it. But really, I was interested in sharing my experiences in this part of the world. I do think it's a conservation success story. It's not, it's not over. We didn't win, but it's an example of things potentially going right, and especially now when everything is going very much wrong in the world. I think it's nice to be able to read about some hope and read about a part of the world that hasn't been absolutely trashed, and the natural system to some degree still functions.
And do you kind of enjoy the process of writing that stuff? Is it the same, or kind of is it as much of a bind as writing kind of papers or something, or do you just kind of, you're in the moment, you're enjoying it? Do you laugh at your own jokes while you write them down, or?
Oh yeah, I definitely laugh at my own jokes, and a lot of my jokes were removed because my editor didn't think they were funny. But no, it's much more fun, I started writing a blog for the magazine Scientific American years ago in 2016, I think, because I was getting fatigue of writing proposals and reports with sort of this dodgy language. And so I would take an hour every morning, before the workday started, and just write. And it was, it's invigorating to be able to, express yourself in a way that you can't when you're writing scientific papers, or there are restrictions about what you can say and how you can say it in formal scientific writing.
Was there stuff really kind of wacky, kind of juicy stuff that you just had to keep out because it would just be too offensive to someone, or just a bit too controversial, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All kinds of stuff that
yeah, that's the second interview. I'm going to ask you about that. But yeah, so I've read this book. I've also got my copy.
Great. Yeah.
And I gradually have to admit that I found it really fascinating, really funny, and for me also, unlike papers, which the academic world, which I'm personally very cynical about, and its contribution to conservation, I actually found this book kind of inspiring. I felt I was kind of reading it, and it reminded me of when I first got into conservation, when I used to just go to the library and read any old books. I used to read a lot of books by things like people like George Schaller. He used to write about tigers and pandas, and he'd be up a tree, looking at lions for 8 hours a day. But I felt, those books were great, but I felt this book was really what set it apart, and why I think it's kind of different and worth the read is that it's kind of so kind of human and personal, and you can just really imagine yourself there. It's not really about, it is about the owls a bit. You see them sometimes, and they're interesting in themselves. Right. But it's kind of and it's kind of like you a bit, but it's really about the people you're interacting with in the landscape, and it's all kind of brought to life with just really great stories, and so I think, I found myself thinking, like, if people are going to read this book, some people are going to be really entertained by it, but I thought that actually, lots of people might be inspired and think, well, I want to have that kind of life, whatever that kind of life is. I want to do something for whatever I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And I think, in a way, you might help generate, some number of new conservationists out there, and that might have more an effect than everything else you've done combined. If you're going to send out 100 more conservationists into the world.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I've already received interest from several schools to talk to their classes about it. And I think that's absolutely, that's great, because that's what we need. We need more young people to be inspired, to understand the rigors of the work, but to also be inspired to protect and better understand where we live.
Yeah, and but it's kind of saying that that's the end. I feel like that's the end. Kind of what happens is you get that inspiration through reading the book, but it doesn't. It's not like a textbook, or you should do this or you should do that. It's not kind of saying we need to protect this, and you know, you have to do your duty. It's kind of more like this is a wild adventure, and just you know, absorb yourself in it, and suddenly you feel yourself emotionally thinking, yeah, I want to have a life like that, and that kind of brings you onto things. So I think that's where the kind of magic of the book works. So you know, definitely, as far as I'm concerned, you know, really worth the read. And as well as reading the book, people can follow you through your blog. I think that's located on the modestly named jonathanslatt.com. Are there any other ways people can stalk you online, or is that the best?
No, that's well. I'm as far as social media, I'm most active on Twitter. But yeah, like the blog has been slow recently, just because I've been focusing on the book. But yeah, I have a website that has events. You know, I give talks. A lot of them are Zoom, so it's easy to see one of those, or Twitter.
Okay, cool. That's it. I can't think of anything else to. Well, I don't have anything else to ask. How do you think it went?
Well, I think the you know, the key message there is for the next generation, right?
Yeah.
Just to be realistic about what to expect, and incorporate communication into your program. I think those things are, you know, public communication. I think that's key.
Did you appreciate my introduction?
I was a little aggressive.
I really watered it down. I thought, you know, otherwise I'm going to appear like a real maniac.
Yeah.
Or more of me. All right. Well, yeah, that's it. I'll let you get back to your grant writing, but thanks very much for that.